In my past life, after a car accident left me a vegetable, my husband, Ethan, and my best friend, Melissa, shamelessly kissed and flirted by my bedside. They even conspired with a criminal gang, signing an illegal contract to collect a hefty sum after my death, which they staged as an accident. My agony was amplified endlessly. Then, I woke up, reborn, before the fateful accident. This time, I deliberately transferred company shares to Ethan. Predictably, he passed the documents to Melissa and her illiterate mother. What they didn't know was that tucked within the thick stack of transfer papers were several organ donation agreements, placed there by Ethan's own hand. I was curious to see what choice Ethan would make between Melissa and her mother when the gang came knocking. "Ethan, not here, oh," Melissa's flirtatious voice drifted from the curtained-off area next to her mother's hospital bed. I glanced indifferently at Mrs. Jones lying unconscious, then quietly walked out. In my previous life, Melissa and her mother had insisted on a picnic with Ethan. On my way to meet them, my car crashed. The impact left me comatose. I survived, but only as a living shell, aware yet trapped. During those years, I heard Ethan and Melissa's whispered betrayals, their illicit kisses. I heard Ethan, acting as my next of kin, sign organ donation forms. They stole my life, my fortune, and disguised it all as a tragic accident. But this time, it wasn't me in that hospital bed. It was Mrs. Jones, who had insisted on tagging along that day and ended up getting hit by a different car, in a different accident. "Amelia? You're awake?" But, the accident, the adulterous pair, startled by my appearance, reluctantly broke apart. "Accident? What accident?" I feigned ignorance, then added with manufactured concern, "Melissa, you should go check on your mom. She doesn't look well." Melissa's face paled. "What? My mom? What happened to her?" She rushed past the curtain. A moment later, her scream ripped through the air, "Mom!" Ethan hesitated, torn between approaching me and rushing after Melissa. I looped my arm through his, my voice choked with fake grief. "Ethan, let's go home. Let Melissa be alone with her mother for now." I steered him away before he could respond. How did Melissa's mother end up in an accident?" Ethan asked anxiously as we left. I dabbed at imaginary tears, a cold fury simmering beneath the surface. "I don't know. I was driving to meet you for the picnic, and I saw Mrs. Jones. She insisted I stop, and then, she was standing in the middle of the road and got hit. The car that hit her was the same one that had hit me in my past life. If I hadn't reacted quickly, it would have been me lying in that bed again." I gripped Ethan's hand tightly until a doctor emerged from Mrs. Jones's room. "The patient is awake. Family and friends can visit." Ethan wrenched his hand free and rushed in. "Mrs. Jones. Are you all right? Are you in pain?" He practically fell to his knees, beside her bed. My heart ached at the sight. My own father had died young, and my mother passed away shortly after my wedding to Ethan. He hadn't visited her once during her illness, let alone shown this level of concern. If I hadn't been so insistent on marrying him, against my mother's wishes, none of this would have happened. "Ethan! What have you done? Why did that car come straight for me? You were supposed to hit Mom." Melissa cut her mother off sharply. Their gazes snapped to me. "Amelia, you must be shaken up," Melissa said, her tone strained. "Go home and rest. I'll take care of my mom." She was clearly eager for me to leave. I feigned fragility. "All right. My legs are still shaky. I'll come back another time." Ethan drove me home, fidgeting nervously the entire way. When I reached for the glove compartment, his tension spiked. I withdrew. My hand, a chill settling over me. "Ethan," I said sweetly, "I've decided to transfer some of the Carter Corporation shares to you." He slammed on the brakes, turning to me with wide eyes. "Amelia, are you serious?" Yes, I said, searching his face for a flicker of remorse. There was none, only greed. He was practically floating with excitement, his earlier nervousness gone. Seeing this, a pang of sadness hit me, but I pushed it aside. Ethan, I'm craving mousse cake from that bakery up ahead. Could you get some while I take a walk? I got out of the car before he could object. Waited for him to lock it with his key, and then accompanied him into the bakery. Inside, I used the crowd to slip away and return to the car. My spare key unlocked the car without a problem. Inside the glove compartment, I found the organ donation agreement, signed with Ethan's name. I felt a wave of nausea. I quickly photographed the document and left. Back home, I was still reeling. Ethan's phone rang, and he fumbled for it nervously. Is that Melissa? Answer it. What if it's important? I peered at the screen, noting the affectionate contact name. He hesitated, then answered. Ethan, could you come to the hospital? It's late, Anne. Mom and we're scared. Melissa's voice was dripping with sweetness. Ethan looked at me, his lips pale. I shook my head and whispered, go be with Melissa. I'll be fine at home. Ethan? Melissa's voice echoed from the phone. Please come. Amelia's fine. She's so strong. All right. He agreed readily and rushed out, leaving his jacket behind. As soon as he was gone, I went upstairs to his locked study. I punched in the code, a combination of kisses and Melissa's birthday, and the safe clicked open. Inside, along with my signed organ donation agreement, was my mother's ruby ring. After her death, it had mysteriously appeared at auction. I'd tried to buy it back, but someone outbid me. Now I knew it was Ethan. I found a letter tucked away, revealing his plan to use the ring to propose to Melissa. They were going to use my mother's ring as an engagement ring? I felt sick to my stomach. I shredded my organ donation agreement, shuffled the remaining papers, and closed the safe. I called Ethan. Honey, I signed the share transfer agreement. It's on the table. Sign it when you get back and have it notarized. He sounded ecstatic, promising to return immediately. I waited until almost midnight. He crept upstairs to the study, then emerged with a stack of documents. My shuffled agreements, signed by Melissa and her mother, but no one else. I watched him add the share transfer papers to the pile and hurry out. John, follow him, I instructed our longtime housekeeper, John, who had been like a second father to me. We followed Ethan to a secluded stairwell at the hospital. I stayed hidden below while he met Melissa. Did you bring the papers? Melissa asked eagerly. Yes, but she included a mountain of documents. I had my lawyer look them over. Good. Remember your promise to Mom, Ethan. All the shares Amelia gives you go to us. This is our dowry. Don't worry. I signed her organ donation forms. Once she's gone, everything will be ours. We might even get a few $100,000 from her organs. He chuckled. Here's the agreement. I signed it. It's at the bottom of the stack. Keep it safe. I dug my nails into my palms, fighting back tears. After they left, I raced back to my car, the metallic taste of blood filling my mouth. So, they wanted to kill me? Let them choke on their own greed. They had signed their own organ donation forms. I wondered who would end up being the donor. Ethan quickly finalized the share transfer. Mrs. Jones, oblivious to the contents, signed and thumbprint every document. Emboldened by their perceived success, Ethan and Melissa became increasingly brazen. Ethan, darling. I'm craving sushi from across town. Is that too far from the hospital? Melissa purred, her hand intertwined with his. I'll get it for you. Ethan patted her head, then turned to me. Amelia, stay with Melissa and her mother. They need your help. If it weren't for you, Mrs. Jones wouldn't be here. Ethan, don't be mean to Amelia, Melissa simpered. You're too kind, he replied, Disgusted, I left the room for some air. 20 minutes later, a message from Melissa popped up. Amelia, did you see my post? She immediately retracted it. I checked her moments. And saw a photo of two hands intertwined over a sushi platter. The caption read, Ethan spoils me. He drove 30 kilometers just to get me our favorite sushi. I smiled grimly. As I turned to go back to the ward, I heard a familiar gruff voice. It was Bruce, the gang leader who had been involved in my murder in my past life. Melissa Jones. Carol Jones. Your organ donation agreement has been activated. The door to Mrs. Jones's room burst open. Several burly men entered. Who are you? Get out of here. Mrs. Jones shrieked. Who are we? That's funny. Bruce, a bald man with tattoos covering his head and neck, sneered. Seeing him confront the Joneses instead of me brought a strange sense of satisfaction. Melissa's sushi craving had turned out to be a stroke of luck. I wondered if Ethan would make it back in time to say goodbye. Stay away. This is a hospital. I'll call the police. Melissa screamed. Bruce laughed and sat down. Melissa, and Carol, was it? Take a good look at this. If you don't come with us and explain this, we'll be back every day. He slammed a stack of papers on the table. The organ donation agreements. What's this? Melissa shrieked. Bruce's men clamped a hand over her mouth. Her face paled, and then she forced a smile. Sir, there must be some mistake. This isn't ours. That's Amelia Carter's name. She glanced around, seemingly checking for my presence. It has nothing to do with us. I don't have time for this. Bruce roared. Is that your name or not? If it is, let's go. He shoved past the gathering crowd, dragging Melissa and her mother out of the room. I followed them discreetly. In the parking lot, they ran into Ethan, returning with the sushi. Ethan! Help me! Help us! Melissa cried, struggling against Bruce's grip. Bruce sized up Ethan. I remember you. You're the husband who signed the papers. So, these two are yours too? They're my. Let them go. Ethan dropped the sushi and lunged forward. Bruce punched him, sending him sprawling. He pressed his foot onto Ethan's chest. Playing the hero? You want them free? I don't work for free. Choose one. He grinned. Or offer yourself. Ethan's face drained of color. Melissa, seeing a chance to escape, renewed her struggles. Ethan, you love me. You promised. Let me go. I'll save you. I swear. You ungrateful wretch. I raised you. And this is how you repay me? Mrs. Jones shrieked, sensing her daughter's betrayal. You wanted me dead so you could marry into money. When did you sign this? You're trying to kill me. Hiding behind a car, I recorded everything. I didn't sign anything. Mom, stop yelling. Let Ethan free me. I'll come back for you. Melissa pleaded, then blurted out, Ethan. Take my place. Let Mom and me go. You're strong. You can. Melissa. You heartless bitch. I treated you so well. I'll kill you. Ethan thrashed furiously under Bruce's foot. Bruce slapped Melissa. Shut up. Do you want to attract the cops? He glared at them. 5 seconds. Make your choice. 5. No. I don't want to die. This is kidnapping. It's illegal. Melissa screamed. You think I care? 4. Bruce looked at Ethan. Well? Who's it going to be? I. 3. Ethan. You have to choose me. I'm pregnant with your child. Melissa sobbed. I stared at Ethan, waiting for his reaction. There was none. 2. 1. I choose. I choose myself. Ethan stammered. Bruce kicked him aside. Ethan! You killed your own child. You're a monster. You'll rot in hell. Melissa's curses echoed through the parking lot as she and her mother were dragged towards a waiting van. Ethan scrambled to his feet, desperate to escape. Don't feel too bad, Bruce called after him. My guy checked. She wasn't pregnant. You're both a bunch of liars. The van sped away. I immediately called the police, hoping they could intercept Bruce before he harmed Melissa and her mother. I hated them, but I believed in justice. Back home, I found a trail of blood leading upstairs. Ethan? I grabbed a baseball bat and cautiously followed the bloodstains. The door to his study burst open. Amelia! Ethan lunged at me. I swung the bat instinctively. He grunted, and more blood splattered the floor. Amelia! It's me. You. What are you doing here? You're hurt, I feigned concern, still gripping the bat. His expression softened. I fell, hit my mouth. It's nothing, he averted his gaze, then suddenly knelt before me, sobbing. I'm sorry, Amelia. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I froze, thinking he knew about the police. But then he continued, I know you found out about Melissa. I was seduced. I didn't want to cheat. She took the shares you gave me and ran off with her mother. He was grieving the loss of the money, not Melissa. Melissa's gone? I gasped, relief washing over me. He didn't know I'd called the police. Don't worry, Ethan. I'll get the shares back. I helped him to the bedroom and tended his wounds. As I prepared to leave, the wail of sirens grew closer. They were here. Ethan stumbled out of the bedroom, his eyes wide with panic. What's happening? Why are the police here? The house was surrounded by flashing lights. I took his hand, trying to calm him. Ethan, I called the police. I told them Melissa stole the shares. It's okay, they're just investigating. You called the police? Are you crazy? He lunged at me, a knife flashing in his hand. The blade sliced through my clothes, piercing my side. Amelia! I'll take you down with me. You knew all along. That's why the police are here. It's your fault. Melissa. You'll both pay. He yanked the knife out. I ducked, bracing for the next blow, but it never came. The police burst through the door, tackling Ethan to the ground. Get off me. I'll kill you, Amelia. You're dead. Ethan screamed as they handcuffed him. The world went black. I woke up in the hospital. The doctor said the knife wound was superficial. I would recover. I was alive. A month later, I left the hospital. Bruce and his gang were arrested for murder and kidnapping. Ethan, Melissa, and Mrs. Jones stood trial. I presented all the evidence, the recording from the stairwell, the forged signatures, the testimony of the driver they'd hired to kill me. Ethan's face was ashen. Melissa and her mother, however, were defiant. Ethan forced me. I never wanted to hurt Amelia. He promised me the shares. He wanted to kill her, then us, and take everything. That's why Bruce came after us. Melissa screamed, pointing at Ethan. It was all him. I watched them turn on each other, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. They would never guess that I had orchestrated everything. The trial proceeded swiftly. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge delivered the verdict. The gavel fell. I walked out of the courthouse, into the sunlight. Ethan, Melissa, and Mrs. Jones shuffled past, escorted by guards. Amelia Carter. This isn't over. I'll get you, Ethan snarled. Quiet, a guard barked. Their voices faded. I wasn't afraid. I had already died once. What was there to fear? I looked up at the sun and whispered, "Did you see that, Amelia? This time, you got your revenge."